Hello everyone, this is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. Your subconscious mind is blocking your astral projections. Before we get to that, just want to mention that one of the ways you can support Astral Club is through Patreon. And our newest patrons are Wayne Thornhill, who is an Astral Master, and Thunder Nugget 123, who is an Astral Scout. And you can join them getting the advanced videos commercial free by clicking the link which will be in the description. Next up, if you're interested in a private lesson with me for 3 hours to learn how to astral project and deal with your customized concerns, fears, questions, there will be an address in the description where you can contact me about more information on private astral projection lessons. So, how is your subconscious blocking your astral projections? Well, before we get into that, let's talk about the mind. The conscious mind is probably, most definitely, what we're the most familiar with. It's the logical mind. It's the mind that you use when you are awake. It deals in logic. It understands reasoning. It learns through reading, instruction. For instance, if you want to learn how to change the oil in your car, you can read a book, and that book will show you how to change your oil. It'll also explain why you should change your oil and how often you should change your oil, which will make sense to your conscious mind because you want to preserve your vehicle. It's a very expensive investment, so it makes sense that to your conscious mind that you want to do this activity to maintain something that's very important to your everyday life. And your conscious mind can understand the fairly simple step-by-step instructions on how to change your oil. Astral projection. I have worked with a wide variety of people over the years. People who have heard the word astral projection or out-of-the-body experiences, but really don't know much more than that, all the way up to people who've read all the books, Monroe and all the other major astral projection works they could get their hands on. They've taken lessons. They've listened to a wide variety of tapes. They have watched Astral Club. They've gone on YouTube and looked at other astral projection channels. They've gone on Reddit and the astral projection Reddit and read all the articles and made comments and asked questions and got some good answers and maybe got some not so good answers. But they have put in an extreme amount of work trying to learn about astral projection and how to astral project. So what does the neophyte, the person who barely knows anything about astral projection, and the person who has consumed all of this logical information, what do they have in common? They very well both could never have consciously astral projected. So why is that? I mean, typically, the more you know about a subject, the better you are, right? Yes. Consciously, when we're dealing with the conscious mind. The conscious mind, to me, is like an educated adult. You tell it why it should do something, make a logical argument, then you show it how to do it, and it gets done. You don't need to do more than that. Unfortunately, we need the cooperation of the subconscious mind in order to get the astral projection ball rolling. The conscious mind, it's great. You should have all that information. But to get the ball rolling, you need to communicate. And you need to get the subconscious mind on board. It needs to understand what you want and when you want it and why you want it. But you can't use conscious logic or books or arguments to convince the subconscious mind. Why? Because, as I said, it communicates differently. If I think of the conscious mind as an educated adult, I think of the subconscious mind as, let's say, a 2 to 3-year-old toddler. How does a 2 to 3-year-old toddler learn? How do parents typically teach them? How do you communicate with a child of that age? Well, you don't give a 2-year-old a college textbook. You don't give a 2-year-old a logical argument, step by step, how to do something in writing, along with another logical argument as to why that's beneficial, because it will go right over its head. A child 2 to 3 years old responds to things like images, pictures, emotions, desire, reward. These are the ways that 2 to 3-year-old communicates. This is the way he interacts with the world, and this is the way he learns. So, if our subconscious mind is a 2 to 3-year-old, and we want to inform it that we want to begin to astral project, how do we get through? Well, the subconscious mind, we've all experienced it. When you dream at night, you experience your subconscious mind. How does it communicate to you? It communicates to you with these weird dreams that when you wake up don't make any sense. But they make sense to the subconscious mind because these images are symbolic. And there's basic desires, emotions, and stresses that are being worked through. If you've ever been in a chair or watching TV or reading a book, and then suddenly you nodded off, and then you came back and you thought of pink giraffes. You're like, what the heck is that? Well, that was a bit of the subconscious mind you were bringing back to your conscious mind. Now, the pink giraffe made sense when the subconscious mind was in control. It didn't make sense to your conscious mind. So how do we talk to one another? Unfortunately, it can be difficult because the areas where we cross over can be very brief. Like I said, you nod off in your chair when you're reading or watching TV. Or you hit your pillow at night and immediately go to sleep. And your conscious mind surrenders itself almost immediately and the subconscious takes over. So, how do we communicate with this 2 to 3-year-old child? Well, we communicate with it the same way you communicate with a child. You don't give it a college textbook. You give it a picture book with pictures, colorful pictures, showing happy animals, showing happy children at play, maybe throwing a ball back and forth with smiles on their faces. That's a very simple image, but it's also very powerful because the child cannot read at this point, but it can see these children. It can see this ball going back and forth on the pages, and it sees smiles on the children's faces. So it knows there is some sort of game going on with this ball, and that game must be pleasurable. There must be some sort of reward to this game because the children are smiling. Now, the child also understands something else too. Even at 2 to 3 years old, they understand fear. I recall when my daughter was very young, she was afraid of the vacuum cleaner. She hated what she called the cleaner. So whenever my wife was vacuuming, I'd try to take her somewhere else, or I'd hold her or put her, take her, and we'd go to another room. Eventually, I helped her get over it. And, we kind of did the whole aversion therapy thing. Eventually, she got closer and closer. I held her. She was safe. Eventually, let her touch it and see that it didn't hurt. And eventually, we got to the point where today, she is quite well acquainted with the vacuum cleaner because she enjoys cleaning her house on a regular basis. But the fear that I saw in her eyes told me at that age, that child certainly understood fear. What is fear? Fear is something that helped our ancient ancestors to survive. Fear is what they felt at night when they were in their caves and there was a fire at the entrance to the cave, and all they could see was a 10-foot radius, and they heard noises coming from the woods and growls, and that fear kept them alert, kept somebody on watch so that they were able to survive. Fear is very much connected with the unknown. When we communicate something like astral projection is something that is very much unknown. Many people have fears in their conscious mind about astral projection, but we can dispel those with logical information. I can help dispel them with read these books or listen to these videos, and I'll explain to you my experiences and how safe astral projection can be. And after a while, that will convince your conscious mind, but not necessarily your subconscious mind. So we know that we need to communicate with this subconscious mind. Why? Well, this mind takes over once your conscious mind surrenders and you fall asleep. What starts in astral projection, the spark that starts in astral projection, is not the conscious mind. It's the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind says to itself in its own symbolic way, we want to do this thing. We seen these pictures of leaving the body and going somewhere, having a fun and pleasurable time, and then returning fulfilled. It understood that because it got the communication. And we'll talk about how to communicate that in a second. And so it says, let's get this started. So you may find yourself standing outside your body, and then you become conscious. The subconscious mind got you started, and then you, the conscious person, takes over and have the projection. But you need the spark from the subconscious mind to get started. How can we practically communicate with our subconscious that astral projection is safe? And it's not only safe, it's pleasurable and it's desirable. Do we try to argue with our subconscious mind using logic? No. One of the ways that I would communicate with my subconscious mind was that as I fell asleep at night, I would say to myself, tonight as I fall asleep, my mind will come awake. I will leave my body, go wherever I wish to go, do whatever I wish to do, and when I return, I will awaken and have full memory of everything that occurred. Now, you may have taken notes with those words or what have you. Keep in mind, though, that the actual words themselves have no magic. You can switch it around and use whatever words you want. It's not the words that are important. They're just a way to kind of keep track, to get started. What you need to do while you're saying these words, until you get really good at it, is to picture yourself. Imagine yourself leaving your physical body. And this is as you're falling asleep. And you're doing this over and over again until you fall asleep. And allow yourself to fall asleep. Don't keep yourself awake for a long period of time. You want to fall asleep. But you're picturing yourself leaving your body. And I want you to feel the pleasure of it. Now, I want you to feel joy too, but moderate those emotions. I don't want extreme emotions, because you know that extreme fear will pull you back into your body. But guess what? Extreme joy will too. Any kind of extreme emotion your astral cord interprets broadly as a possible threat. So I want you to picture moderate joy as you leave your body, then go to some distant place. Picture yourself traveling there, having a pleasurable time, a pleasant time. And then when you return, picture yourself awakening with full memory of everything that had occurred. The important parts of this, once again, are not the words. The important bits are the pictures, the picture book that you are showing your subconscious mind. That 2 to 3 year old child, you are showing it a picture book of what you want to accomplish, a pleasurable astral projection. So it understands that this is not unknown. This is going to be a pleasurable experience. It understands or begins to gradually understand what you're trying to accomplish. And the better you are at imagining that floating out experience, and the better you are at feeling that moderately joyful experience and emotion, the better you will be at communicating with this 2 to 3 year old child subconscious mind. Once you do this enough, you will find yourself perhaps starting with lucid dreams. But those are great. We've talked about how you can astral project using those. But you will begin having experiences, and eventually they will most likely lead to astral projection. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take you. Certain children are easier to convince than others. Some are more willful than others. However, you need to communicate to this subconscious mind, this young child. And you need to communicate to it in a language it can understand. Yes, your conscious mind loves all this stuff. Continue reading. Continue listening to videos. You'll learn a lot of great stuff which will be useful while you're projecting. But to get things started, to spark that initial flame that is an astral projection, we need to communicate with the subconscious mind using the picture and emotional language that the subconscious mind can understand. If you thought this video was beneficial, hit the like button. Share it with those of like mind. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell. Remember, we have 2 videos a week now. One on Wednesday afternoon and then the usual one on Saturday morning. And if you want to be a patron or you want private lessons or information on private astral projection lessons, that information will be in the description. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.